Always stay curious. You should always want to collaborate. You should always want to be learning more. Be a lifelong learner. Small plug to the semester at sea program. Be a lifelong learner. Continue to be curious. I think we should never stop in our pursuit of knowledge, because the more we know, the more that we understand the meaning of life, the meaning of what makes us happy, and how we can also deliver great things for others, make an impact to what we love to do, and really find sense of purpose, and all that through curiosity, which is incredible.
Welcome to this week's As Unexpected podcast, when we talk to C-suite executives, entrepreneurs, and philanthropists about how they lead into the future when the future generally goes as unexpected. I'm Scott Marshall, your host, and my own professional experience has made me a believer that it's not how you show up when all goes as planned, but it is how you show up when things go as unplanned. Given all of their experiences, each of our guests has become very attuned to the fact that the future is not to be predicted. My hope is that this podcast can help all of you become better leaders by building the core leadership capabilities for leading in an uncertain world. Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of As Unexpected. We have someone who has truly built such a cool business and has dealt with so many as unexpected moments. I so look forward to hearing from him. Sammy, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much, Scott. Howdy, everybody. My name is Sammy. I'm here based out of Austin, Texas. Wishing everybody a wonderful, what is today, Wednesday? Wonderful Wednesday.
And Sammy, can you give us this brief bio of your entrepreneurial venture, but where the inspiration come from, and here you are now. You were telling me about some really exciting possibilities right now emerging for you. You've faced so many twists and turns, many of them this year. We'd love to hear that brief bio from you.
Definitely. So I started Wanderlust Wine Company. We are based out of Austin, Texas. We've expanded to 3 locations, primarily in the brick and mortar space, tasting room space. We're a post-pandemic business. Our intention was to start on April of 2020 in honor and memory of my late mother. Of course, it was the worst time to start a business, but the greatest time to drink wine. So this kind of unexpected turn of almost silver lining of events that really brought an opportunity for us was what kept us afloat. And this all really, before we get into what Wanderlust has done, it's how it all began. And so Wanderlust, and here's kind of a visual representation of our up and coming wine packaging. Again, since we started in brick and mortars, we're just about to tap into the retail space and CPG world. But this all started with, of course, the reason why we're all here, semester at sea, representing every day, all the time. It started being a student on the ship, exploring, and wine is it's interesting because wine has been so fundamentally integrated in ports because they've been traditionally traded throughout many years in history, and one of the things that Semester at Sea does is visit these ports. So there's this underlying connection of wine and travel, especially. Sometimes I think it's silly to say, but I think I may still be the record holder for the amount of voyages a student has done, but I did 4 semesters as a student. How I did it, that's probably another podcast, but really, self-funded my way, worked many jobs, and was able to receive financial aid support as well to make things happen and really, keep doing these life-changing voyages back to back to back. But during that time, one of the professors on board was Professor John Boyer, who taught geography of wine. And he, many professors, of course, but he definitely left a lasting impact on now my current career. And it was exploring using the tools of the program, which was visiting these key ports to explore the value of wine and go from there. So I fell in love with wine. I fell in love with the appreciation, the art of wine, and decided at a younger age that this was something I wanted to pursue long term. And so Semester at Sea was really the catalyst, that the program that really started and ignited this interest, this curiosity this fire to learn more about this industry and ultimately how this beverage brings people together. I mean, Wanderlust Wine Company started when I was on board, undergoing this geography of wine course with Professor John Boyer. And the idea, Wanderlust and Ubuntu were the two words you were always hearing being floated around on the ship. And so Wanderlust just really resonated, the desire to travel. And in this case, the desire to travel through wine. And so wine is this one, I mean, there's a lot of arguments that other beverages do the same, but I feel wine is one of the true beverages that really can transfer you, that really help you travel through, experiencing sensorially, where it's from. You can be like, oh, this is Sauvignon Blanc from New Zealand. Oh, this is an Italian Barolo. And it just kind of takes you back to these experiences, sometimes in a Slumdog Millionaire situation of like, you correlate it to an actual experience that you had. Sometimes you read about it. So you're using your senses and your memories to create this idea of what that is. So, I started at semester or with semester at sea, was actually working. I'm proud to say I was working with semester at sea once I graduated, for a few years, and still just, starting to continue the curiosity of, which I feel we may use that word a lot today, the curiosity of learning more about wine, and while still working on semester at sea during the down period, working at different wineries and wine companies to continue to grow that until I decided to go full on, which I wish to thank Semester at Sea for believing in me and allowing me to, and supporting my transition into that pursuit of a growing career, which is where we are today. So Semester at Sea has just been fundamental and extremely supportive of this journey from exploration, curiosity, to now, execution and even networking and expanding growth. So long-winded bio to say Semester at Sea introduced me to the wonderful world of wine responsibly, and now has expanded to what is now known as one of the world's largest wine on tap wineries, based out of Austin, Texas.
Sammy, what is wine on tap? Because most people think it's wine in a bottle.
One of my lifelong goals will be to see if there's ever a way to have one of our keg wines on the ship, in one of the probably the professor bars. But it's just like beer. I think it was Anheuser-Busch back in the 80s had tried to keg wine, but there was not a lot of R&D. There's not a lot of research on how that could impact or maintain the quality of the wines. So, fast forward to around 2011, literally during the time that I'm a student on Semester at Sea, this idea of kegging wine starts to reemerge. And it is around the time that I'm being introduced to wine. And so it was just kind of like being curious at the right time. Right now, Semester at Sea is based out of Colorado. Let's go. And I used to live out there. And so one of the big wineries at the time was Infinite Monkey Theorem. IMT based out of Denver, and actually, funny enough, opened here in Austin, which we'll actually talk about that story here shortly. But they were kind of the second pusher and mover and influencer of alternative packaging for wine, whether it was cans or kegs. They wanted to be different and show that you can have great wines in different packaging. And, that resonated with a new generation of wine drinkers and people that wanted to have wine in a more casual or more of an entertainment setting. So yeah, keg wine, literally the same as what you hear is what it is, wine in a keg. And what's beautiful about it is in its ideal form, it's going into a stainless steel keg. There's alternative options too, plastic kegs, one-way kegs, stuff like this, recyclable kegs. But the stainless steel keg has been around for so long, and the idea is that it goes from a stainless steel tank to a stainless steel keg. So there shouldn't be any issues. So that was super eye-opening and exciting to see how to make wine more accessible. And I think that was the biggest driver of how do we get more wine into people's glasses and get people to, again, build conviviality, build memories, social moments. And it's funny, as I say this, like right now, I feel like I find that even more empowering on the mission today, because it just feels like, people are drinking less. It may be health related, but the amount of social interaction that we had when I was a student, I hate to say this, like if I'm an older, as they say, a boomer, but the interaction and the social environments that we were once in, really allowed for deep connection. And, we are in a digital age, we're in an AI age where a lot of this is, I feel in a certain way, making us less social. So I feel that our purpose really is to, again, continue to bring wine to people's glasses, but to build memories, great memories, long lasting memories, friendships, build friendships, build these social interactions. Because I feel like maybe we're missing a little bit of that with too much technology. So, by the way, just a little asterisk point. When we were sailing and I was a student, Snapchat had barely come out. So, and, our Wi-Fi on the ship was quite limited. I think we had 2 hours for the full term, unless you, of course, purchased more. And so Instagram was on the rise, but, social media was not what it is today. And so you really lived in the moment. And, I'm not trying to promote alcohol as alcohol, but in the sense of sharing a glass of wine or a beer with what you didn't know at the time were going to become some lifelong friendships is incredible.
And Sammy, you've designed your locations with that community lens to it. I've been in one. I haven't been in the newer ones since that first one. But I remember it was really the layout and how you placed the wine kegs up against one place, and then you had a lot of tables out. There really was very few, if I recall, smaller tables. Like you designed it for community. Is that correct?
That's absolutely correct. I think we went from a medium-sized venue to an extra large venue, which I believe is where you visited. And the idea was, think of a beer hall, Oktoberfest, this huge sense of community, huge sense of celebration of life, of one another. And we wanted to bring that to wine, and it did very well. Again, there's been the expectation at the time was that, we got through COVID, we're ready to live life again, and everything was looking towards that path. And then, things dipped a lot. And now, it feels sad to say, but some of not only us, but a lot of these larger venues that were once known for large community engagement don't have the same momentum, don't have the same, life to it that it once had. And so, adapting to these changes, being strategic is very important on maintaining the success and the position of one's brand, but also to the experience of the end consumer. Because now, there's no problem getting 200 to 300 people in a room at the time. Now, if that room only has 10 or even up to 50 people and they're scattered around, it just feels empty, And so there's the idea of community was huge for us. Again, it was, how do we get great wines into people's glasses in a large community setting so that we can prove this concept that, you can enjoy wine in larger settings, not just beer. But yeah, it's just, again, it's been a really interesting shift from these larger, beer hall settings to now seeing a lot of smaller environments. And, it is a strategy. I feel like that's always a great strategy. You go to New York and that's its charm. You go to these super tight, can barely get through bars and restaurants. And that's what makes it so fun and unique. Here in Texas, as they say, we love everything bigger and better. And so we went for the big route. And I feel like right now the trend is really going towards smaller and meaningful experiences versus just casual, large community driven ones. And even those, there's still opportunity for those environments. You just have to find a different way to position them and program them in the sense of bringing things of current value and current trend excitement to get those people back in the door. But things are definitely not like they used to, and they're constantly changing. So we're always expecting the unexpected.
This episode of As Unexpected is sponsored in part by Semester at Sea, a study abroad program for college students and adults on career breaks, sabbaticals, or retired, interested in learning and exploring the world together. Learn more about the Lifelong Learner program at www.semestersea.org. Indeed, yeah, yeah. It sounds like that's one great example. My guess is you've had many of those along this entrepreneurial journey, and beyond that one, do you have another like story of just couldn't have expected it? And the key is for people to understand how you showed up. Like, how do you approach that when you're suddenly faced with it, and how do you show up for other people when things just don't go as you thought they would?
Yeah, man, I'm trying to see how I can best unpack this. I think, a lot of things pre-pandemic were all looking good for the wine world. And so, working for others, always you're focused on yourself, you're focused on how to build yourself, your career, your next, finding the next best role, and empower yourself, empower others through your work. The first main challenge we faced, well, the first thing was, what do we do with Wanderlust? We've got this fun idea, a brand that people through guerrilla marketing started to know about, and we're like, kind of a liquid death strategy of like, what is Wanderlust Wine Company? Like, what are they doing? And then finally, we find our home after doing a secondary program similar to Semester at Sea. It's called the OIV MSc. It's a Master's of Science in Wine Management through the OIV, which can in a way be seen as the UN of wine, the international regulating body for wine around the world. They have a master's program that takes wine professionals to up to 26 countries in 11 months. And so it's Semester at Sea, but on land and wine focused. So for anybody out there, OIV MSc, check it out. And so your final project is to build something. So for me, it was giving me almost like an accelerator program, giving me the confidence to design and build this business plan for what is Wanderlust, truly identify what it is that I wanted to do. And we landed with alternative packaging. Now, the first challenge was, okay, we're looking to get into a niche market that is selling wine, which is already considered a niche market in its own. And so, but we're trying to disrupt the way that people drink, and that's through wine on tap, wine being poured from a tap, and with self-pour technology, which at the time was not legal in Texas. So that was our first challenge of like, who are we? What are we trying to do? How can we make an impact? How can we be cool? And how can we be unique? And how can we provide the best experience to customers? All these 100 questions that were floating. And thus the first idea or the first rendition of Wanderlust came to life, which was becoming the world's largest wine on tap winery that is self-dispensing. And so we helped legalize it in our state. We had at the time 56 wines that we were producing with multiple producers. We work as what the French call a négociant or a wine merchant. So we're able to kind of work with different producers to create our final blends and products. So we had a lot of product, and people were drinking a lot of wine at the time. So it was such a great thing. It really took off. Of course, our biggest challenge for the first year and a half was facing the pandemic. And like we were trying to open our doors in April of 2020, as I mentioned earlier. But when, things really shut down around what here in Austin is known as South by Southwest time, which is some of the biggest moments of the year for anybody in town, we lost a lot of those opportunities. They fell through, and that was a lot of financing and cash injection that we needed to finish some of these concept projects and developments. And may I say, like, one of the craziest things, and for those that have been to Texas, especially Austin, can understand, maybe feel the pain of this. We did not have our AC completed until a year and a half after we opened our doors. So for a year and a half, it was enduring the extreme heat and sometimes the heavily or highly uncomfortable cold that we get here in Austin. And I mean, I say that from a Texan perspective. So we're not like, but we did hit that summer around like close to 2 weeks, I believe. It was like 13 straight days of triple digit summer days. And so it was facing heat, facing, kind of the immediate impact of the pandemic, social distancing, new technology on top of that, alternative packaging, niche market. And then on top of that, if I'm able to still layer this cake, we still are. We're next to Austin Police Department. And during the time there was the social justice protest happening, there was cars being lit on fire. There was tear gas everywhere, riot police. we'd smell tear gas often, and we'd be like, our customers would be like, "Is that tear gas?" And I was like, "It's a spicy Tempranillo." And then I'd just go and cry in my office. So like, man, I can't believe, we're in the best spot, but in the worst spot, because we did find a gem of a location in basically the biggest intersection of the city of Austin. I mean, we're I-35 and 6th Street. Again, for those that know Austin, we get around 250,000 vehicles per day that see our building, around 6 million impressions a month to our building. But yet the joke is that we're like the hot dog cart seller on Times Square yelling, "Hot dog, get your hot dog." And they're like, "Please get out of the way. I'm trying to take a picture." So in the right place, but you're just not getting that success. Location, they always say location, 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 but in this case, it was almost like our worst decision of where we decided to go, because even though the visibility was there, we just were not getting the business. And then, a lot of big cities during the time, because of the closure of a lot of businesses programs, this is a subject that still resonates today. It's the homeless camps, the homeless, the unhoused. There was a lot of confusion of what regulation city policies were. And so, supporting or not supporting individuals that needed help, as well as like dealing with mental health problems, that was a big detractor for people to want to go and experience. So we were just facing left and right, social justice, economic, inflation was on the rise, workforce issues. I'm trying to think what else was happening at the time. But as you can tell, it was just a compounding effect of like, just give up, dude. Like, please just give up. And it was like,
you had a multi-layered cake that somehow you had to eat your way through to success.
You keep doubling down, and you keep, you got to believe in your story. If you don't believe in your story, nobody else will. And so I say we a lot. I talk very inclusively, but at the time it was just myself. My dad had quit his job to attempt to support all these growing challenges and problems. So it was just he and I and one of my friends who started working with us part-time and then became full-time, just to like keep the doors open. And again, like even with all these things, we were a grassroots, small minority owned business. In this case, like growing to be known as family operated, because my dad started joining, and then now recently my sister and her family, and now my wife, everybody is like involved now. And so again, we never gave up. And I think at that time, if you were burnt out, if you were tired, if you were not really believing in your why, those businesses were dropping left and right. And they still do today. I mean, it has been really hard, continues to be very hard, across various industries. And so you just got to always go back to your why. Like, why am I here? Why am I here? And that why has changed a lot. They always say, once a year you should go visit your doctor, make sure you're healthy and well. You should redo your business plan. You should redo your core values, revisit your mission, your vision. Understand your why. Why are we here? What is it that is driving us? Because once you lose that kind of final destination or that idea of where you're going, you're going to kind of get lost with so much white noise. And not that it's become second nature, or like, how do I say this, muscle memory of like facing adversity so many times, but like you're in a leadership role. I mean, you get presented problems left and right. And so I feel that was one of the moments where it really felt like I was thrown in a pool and didn't know how to swim. And you just got to keep fighting to save your life. And then as we grew, like now there was livelihoods that we were responsible for, right? Like, and you're in your position. I mean, I can only imagine. I mean, you're not only thinking about students, you're thinking about staff, you're thinking about dependents, you're thinking about crew, you're thinking about vendors, suppliers, the list goes on and on. And so as you continue to grow bigger, so does your impact, but also your impact on others. And it's just a crazy, crazy thing to digest.
Sammy, I always start with the people who I work with every day.
Mm-hmm.
Right? In that regard, that's where I feel like I always have to start, because they're the ones who will spend even much more time and energy taking care of those people who are on a voyage or suppliers. And I'm not sure how you feel about that, but it's that person is right next door who is one of my senior leaders who I need to be most attentive to and most supportive of.
Yeah. And for me, it's my wife. She's sitting right across right now, working very hard, and she's my boss, So, no, I totally hear you. I think, it's your immediate team that really is going to make those ripples and those waves that are going to continue to keep that impact going in that and sustaining that business, because it's a team effort. At the end of the day, like main message today, if there's anything I can say is it's a quote. And I know we'll get to one quote, but one of the quotes was, if you want to get somewhere fast, go alone. If you want to get somewhere or get further, you go in a team or in a group. I may have butchered that quote, but in essence, it takes a village. It really takes a strong team, and it takes the right team. I think that's something that has been it's been something that we've been constantly trying to work on like getting the right individuals. And it's so hard to know what it is that you're looking for. And that's even like in today's AI age, right? ChatGPT may have a lot of answers, but do you know what you're asking? And it's like, what is it that you actually want? And there was somebody too, like it was a recent panel I went to. They said, Elon Musk, whether you love or dislike the guy, he understands that everything starts from building the fundamental structure, the architecture of a team framework.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
And I think at the end of the day, like it's so incredible too, maybe again, related or not related, how people see a brand, they'll see Wanderlust and they're like, wow, you guys are killing it. Like you guys are just like, I see you everywhere and all these things. And you're like, man, I wish I could tell you everything it took to be here. And I mean, obviously we're doing that a little bit here, but and how many people it took to get to where we are today. There's no secret sauce. Like, it's just hard work, dedication, and I just feel like
belief in what you're doing. You just believe in it. Yeah.
And I think that drives you further, because at the end you understand what you can produce and what you can create and what impact you can make. But when you have more responsibilities, it just sometimes makes you fight harder for it. And that could be with kids, that could be with team members, that could be with what your product and service actually does. So yeah, it's been the why. Ultimately, the why has always changed, but it really goes back to supporting our immediate team and making a difference through what we believe in and continue to do day to day, day in and day out.
So actually, this whole conversation at the latter half of the podcast leads right into this quote that I've chosen for you, Sammy. It comes from Brian Glazer's book, A Curious Mind. We talked about it before. It's relatively short, but it's got a lot of power in it. So I'm going to read it to you and have you quickly respond, okay?
Okay.
Curiosity helps create collaboration, but it also helps give you autonomy.
Yeah, when you told me the first time, I was like, it's so true, because when you're curious, you're going out there, you're trying to collaborate with people. You're like, help me unbox this, help me learn more about this. I'm curious, I need answers, I need to understand my why. But then after you build this collaboration, you break off and you're like, okay, I get it, I'm about to go and do this on my own. And whether you're still collaborating or not, now maybe you're the one that people are looking for when they're curious. So now it becomes, as the apprentice becomes the master, And so it's so impactful, because it feels like our success has also relied a lot, especially on the initial years, on collaboration. And even now, like, I'll show you these, and we're here in Austin. I'm thinking big. I'm like, collaborations. How do we partner? The word partner has been extremely exhausted and overused, but that is how we see things. How do we partner? How do we work together? How do we make this? A lot of people say win-win. We say, how do we make this a win-wine? So, how do we find a way to mutually benefit from a partnership? And that can literally still mean, how do I sell you wine? But like, how do I still find a way to be somebody that you can trust? Which, in the world of where we are living today, trust is a big thing that we all seek, because what is authentic? What is something that, there's influencers everywhere. There's all these things, like, where do we find sources of trust, of authenticity? And I'm kind of going too far away from.
If I could just build off that, right? Curiosity allows you to really understand what the other people need in the partnership, whether it's a marriage, whether it's an employee, whether it's another senior leader, whether it's an external supplier or someone who's a client. It's only through that curiosity can you effectively collaborate to create win wines. But also in that process, you become more confident, more knowledgeable, more wiser, and so you can develop that greater autonomy as well. So actually, all the examples you just provided illustrate that quote so well. It seems paradoxical, but in fact, curiosity is the power for collaboration and autonomy at the same time. Yeah. No, it's a great illustration for sure. You have the lived experience.
Yeah, I think you and I told you earlier, I made the joke of like always stay curious. I think you should always want to collaborate. You should always want to be learning more. Be a lifelong learner. Small plug to the semester at sea program. Be a lifelong learner. Continue to be curious. I mean, I think we should never stop in our pursuit of knowledge. Because the more we know, the more that we understand the meaning of life, the meaning of what makes us happy, and how we can also deliver great things for others, make an impact to what we love to do, and really find a sense of place. I don't know how to say this, like sense of purpose, and all that through curiosity, which is incredible.
Sammy, this has been a blast. That's a perfect place to end. I want our listeners to settle on those last words of yours. Thank you for the time. It's been a thrill. Good luck with your CPG effort. So for those of you who don't know CPG, consumer packaged good, and for those on audio only, you'll have to just peek at the video and see the product that they're launching. Sammy, it's been great. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much.
This episode of As Unexpected is sponsored in part by Semester at Sea, a study abroad program where students visit 10 countries on 3 continents, all while taking 3 to 4 college classes through Colorado State University. See course offerings and upcoming voyage itineraries at www.semesteratsea.org. Thank you for joining this week's episode of the As Unexpected podcast. The viewpoints and opinions of featured guests do not necessarily represent those of the Institute for Shipboard Education or Semester at Sea. Hit the like button, share it with your colleagues, family, and friends, and remember, be curious, be compassionate, be courageous. That's what it takes to lead as unexpected.